So welcome everybody to episode 14 of the Resistance podcast. It's been a while now since we've done the last one, but we do have a bit of a mini series idea going on. It's going to be a 3-part series on eating healthy, on that motivation, the mindset, and then the practical how-to part as well. So that's what we're going to cover. So my name is Thurston.
I'm Christina.
And so let's kick it off. So so I mean, I've been kind of working on this idea because, with people, most people struggle to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And I find over the years, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years now, and it seems to be getting harder and harder for people just to say, okay, here's what you should eat to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And something that naturally we've been doing for thousands of years is now this suddenly, oh my gosh, what? I have to eat real food and give up ultra processed food. It seems to be a major challenge for people.
Mm-hmm. And just being disciplined.
Yeah. So when I was kind of really thinking about it, when I was working with people, I was thinking, well, the first thing that people, in order to make a change, is they need to be motivated to create a change. So obviously, if you're not motivated, you don't have a reason to do something, well, there's no point in talking about the rest. So I thought that's a good place to start. So really understanding why you would want to eat healthy, why you want to be healthy, and really the implications of that. And I think we can really go into detail about that, about how what we eat really does impact our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully by the end of this, you'll be motivated enough to listen to number 2, which will be all about the mindset, because that's the next thing that people will trip up on. So they go, okay, I want to be healthier, but having the right mindset, do I have the self-confidence to do it, overcoming emotional eating and habit change and the psychological aspects. So having the right mindset, knowing that you can do it and overcoming those obstacles. And then, of course, the third part, when you've got the right mindset, you're motivated to do it, then I think is the time to cover all the tips and tricks of, okay,
what to do.
Yeah. So you're going out to a restaurant. How do you navigate, holidays? How do you navigate when you're traveling? All the tips and tricks. If you have cravings, what do you do? And healthy substitutes and all those factors. So by the end of it all, and this is really the goal of this, is that you'll have everything that you need to completely transform and make it to the point where it's no longer an effort. So you take all the various steps, you make the changes, and then you can just lead an incredibly healthy and happy life, which I think is what everybody ultimately wants. And unfortunately, very few people do, because now we're statistically 93% of people in America are metabolically unhealthy. So, which is a disaster.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Just getting worse and worse.
Yeah. And just before we started this, just for the fun of it, I looked up the database to see how many consultations we've done. And it's interesting because, there's a lot of information out there on the internet and a lot of people who are instant experts in things, they just Google something, oh, now I know it. But experience, I think, has, especially when it comes to this area where you're talking about the mindset, motivation, behavior change, I think experience definitely comes into it. And just on that database, and this is only for a short period of time that we had this, between 2013 to 2018 roughly. Well, you've done 1,350 consultations. So you've probably done close in your lifetime, probably close to 5,000 or more consultations.
Yeah, feels like it.
Hopefully it's not dread.
How about you? What's your number?
Well, probably, obviously I'm older, I've been doing it for longer.
Yeah.
It could be close to 10,000. On that database is around 3,000. And again, that's in a 6-7 year period. And I've been doing it for 30 years. So, yeah, I mean, it must be close enough to 10,000 consultations.
Right.
It's a lot.
You start to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And we put it to the test because we've worked with companies where we're actually monitoring exactly what the results are for the average
Mm-hmm.
person. And when we did that and we created these reports, it was off the charts. We were getting like 50 times what the standard of corporate wellness results were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just because you can have experience of doing things the wrong way and it's
Yeah.
not much good. We've got experience of getting like really good results.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to kind of say that because again, there's so much information out there, and really it comes down to results at the end of the day. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that level of experience, that level of results, I think we have a few points that should make a big difference
Right.
to
Could really
people
help
listening to
people.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so do you want to kick it off, Christine? I mean, I think it'd be
Um.
interesting even to talk about your own personal, because obviously you eat
Mm-hmm.
healthy all the time, you exercise all the time, you do all these things, you stay super healthy. I mean, what is it that motivates you?
For me, what was a huge motivator when it came to food specifically was how it made me feel. I didn't realize I was young. I was still 19 when I started this, and I was so unaware that the food I was eating was making me feel the way I did, which was really tired and just kind of unmotivated and unwell. Was felt quite unwell, to be honest, from the foods. I remember as a teenager going to the doctor saying, I think I'm diabetic, which I probably was pre-diabetic. I think now looking back at the way I ate and everything and how I felt. So yeah, for me, putting the food in my mouth and how I'm going to feel in the long run, or different actually health related issues as well. Like I had some autoimmune stuff that if I wasn't to eat well, I'd be afraid could become an issue again. Or yeah,
Mm.
it's really about feeling well and um
It's not
yeah,
just long
staying
term though. I
healthy.
mean,
Because
you notice it like within hours of a meal.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Um, I especially when I started, like now I'm just used to eating the way I eat, but when I first start eating certain things, I remember being given the diet plan, and I remember thinking this girl who gave it to me, the trainer, is like, God, that's a bit interesting that you eat like this. And I was questioning her, like, do you eat this, but do you not eat bread? And I honestly thought she was a little crazy. It seemed a bit far out there and
Mm.
far fetched. I was like, what? You don't just eat sandwiches and cereal? This is really bizarre. And then when I ate certain food combinations, like little snacks of nuts and cheese, I was like, oh, I feel really good. I feel alive. I just noticed I was like switched on all of a sudden, that those little things initially motivated me, and then the bloatedness in my stomach, all the things that I probably wanted to improve on were improving. So that for me
Mm.
drove me personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's fascinating. I mean, it is interesting that because a lot of people, I think, they don't really associate what they eat with how they feel.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the biggest issues right there.
Yeah.
That if you could really experience that and see that, because that's what I notice is when we have new clients, when we start working with them, once they start eating healthy, even for a week, and then
Mhm.
they have an unhealthy meal, they really notice it. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I had that food and I felt awful afterwards."
Mhm. Yeah.
Whereas if they never, did enough to kind of eat healthy,
They'd
even for a
never
few days,
notice.
they don't even notice.
Yeah.
So I think right there is the first one that I jumps out at me from what you're saying, and makes a lot of sense to me is the motivation. If you actually eat healthy for a few days, cut out all the ultra processed food, eat real food, um, and then you have ultra processed food again in a meal, you just feel lousy. And
Mhm.
that's a great motivator right there, is you start to associate what you're actually consuming with
Mhm.
how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So um, and I
I
think
think
most people kind of will, at least understand
they
that.
have an awareness, but I think as I think back, I think there's a lot of mixed messaging about, oh, to have this sports drink for energy. Like for me back then, I was reaching for Red Bulls and Lucasade Sport and things to try get more energy because I thought, oh, these are the drinks being marketed to me for energy,
Mm.
which were making the problem obviously a lot worse. So I think that could be an issue too, the wrong information when it comes, because I think people are slightly aware, that certain foods could help your energy, but it's a lot of wrong messaging there too.
100%, 100%. And that's, yeah, because it's like, and look, all these companies know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They purposely
Oh yeah.
associate what are, like, this is how marketing and PR works, our desires and even our unconscious desires, they'll associate with these products.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they'll carefully design it so that when we look for happiness, we
Mm-hmm.
look for the happy meal,
Yeah.
we look for enjoyment,
Coca-Cola,
enjoy
McDonald's,
whatever.
yeah.
All of these brands, they're not worth billions for no reason. They literally have mind share. And
Yeah.
obviously we're going to go into the mindset stuff a lot in the second part. But from a motivational point of view, I do think the association, in other words, when you realize and you can
Mm-hmm.
actually associate good feelings with good food, that makes a big difference to your motivator, because then
Mm-hmm.
it becomes, when you really associate that, it becomes then actually quite easy.
Yeah, effortless, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a big word there, effortless, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I know you, so it's the same as me. It's not an effort to eat healthy.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And that's what we'd love to get everybody to that level, because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Again, it's something we've done for thousands of years. Um, we're kind of in this crazy world right now that we think this very abnormal way of eating, and obviously we've got atrocious health,
Mm-hmm.
and we think that as normal, but it's certainly not natural. And that's the way I always distinct. Oh yeah, it's normal to be unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is a big thing as well, is that it's an uphill battle because everybody's unhealthy. So our environment is unhealthy. So that's why I really wanted to kind of work on this, that if we can break this down and you can be motivated enough to create a change, and then we'll give you all the tips and tricks and tools and mindset things to overcome that, then you can step outside of that line. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, I always see it like lemmings going off a cliff. We're just following
Yeah.
each other off a cliff. And we're at a point right now, no species on the planet has ever been as unhealthy as we are today.
Yeah, I believe it.
And quite frankly, this is what motivates me a lot, because I always feel like I'm up against the system, this evil empire, the ultra processed food and all this kind of stuff. And
It's
if you actually
true.
delve into it, it is very like that. I mean, a lot of the
We all
cigarette
are though.
companies switched into the ultra processed food industry
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
they were very good at it,
Yeah.
very good at manipulating people, merchants of doubt, all this kind of stuff, to really cause people to want their products. But these things are not natural. And
Mm-hmm.
they are not good for us, and they
Mm-hmm.
cause so much poor health. So I think motivators can come on many different levels. Obviously, there's personal motivators of your personal goals, which obviously we'll talk more and more about. But even on a bigger scale, if you look at where the world is at, it's very shocking,
Mm-hmm.
that if you just came from some other planet and you landed here, what are people doing? People are so unhealthy. Now we've got like 50% of people are diabetic or pre-diabetic. 93% of people are metabolically unhealthy on a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not things like when I was born 50 years ago, only 1% of people had diabetes. 1%, now 50% are either diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Do you want to explain what you mean by metabolically unhealthy? I know most people will maybe understand, but just on a broad spectrum, what you mean by that?
Sure, yeah. And that was an interesting research that literally showed how many people were metabolically unhealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
metabolically unhealthy just means that your internal health on a cellular level, how healthy you are, is poor.
Mm-hmm.
So so it's just how healthy, because I mean, you can have poor health from something external, like you can have an accident, you can fall
Oh,
and
yeah.
break your leg, and because usually deaths like 100 years ago and beyond, how people died was either infectious disease or accidents.
Hmm.
I mean, that was how people died. If you think of, you know, uh, Paleolithic times or
Hmm.
whatever, I mean, it was much harsher environment, and you could be eaten by some
Hmm.
animal or something like that. And we don't have those threats anymore. But now we've got this really poor metabolic health internally. That's what's killing everybody every year more than
Hmm.
anything else. And it is, yeah, I'd love to just wake people up to that and go, what are we doing? This is, it's so crazy. And the knock on impact is huge. And we're subsidizing, or we're feeding into this system that of this ultra processed food that now actually is 3/4 of our diet. 73% of our diet is made up of ultra processed food.
Wow.
And we know just look it up, go to PubMed, ultra processed food. It has such a bad impact on our health. No question. No
Hmm.
question. This is something that's not debatable. Now, of course, you're going to find all these food manufacturing companies, they will try to, put in
Spin
these,
it.
yeah, they'll try to put in this doubt, and they'll hire doctors and researchers to say, oh, no, it's fine to eat massive amounts of sugar and industrial seed oils
Hmm.
and ultra processed foods, and it's just rubbish. Like, it's just, I mean, there's a certain point I always kind of go, okay, well, then someone explain to me why it is that in the last 50 to 100 years our health has gone off a cliff. And if you can't come up with that, then sorry, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to stop eating all these things. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go too much deep into that, because I get very passionate about that. I just think, wow, what are you doing to people, and what are you doing to our kids?
Hmm.
Because now the knock-on effect, because I mean, if you get this ultra processed food, your dollars are then going to fuel that industry, that are going to advertise and convince us more and more that we need more of this. And then they're
Hmm.
going to convince others and kids. So it has a knock-on effect. So what you do impacts other people. And I really feel sorry for the younger generation,
Hmm.
because I mean, when I
They're
was
so
young,
sick.
everyone was healthy. And now
Yeah.
you have 50% of people overweight, of kids,
Yeah.
20% obese, and 20% are pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Hmm.
And then depression rates are off the charts, even for
And
um,
autoimmune diseases, allergies.
all of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's horrific. And again, I mean, this sounds crazy, but I always think we're the dumbest species on the planet, because we're less healthy and happy than a freaking mouse is. And we prioritize health less than a mouse.
Hmm.
They will prioritize health more than we will. So what is it that we're trying to do?
Hmm.
It's crazy. And again, the knock-on effect, and you're going to have to shut me up now, Christina, because I got to go on and on about all this stuff, because I just see it like this. Like, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And it is a motivator, because I'm like, I'm not buying into that system.
Yeah.
So when I see the ultra processed food, I'm like, oh, there's a nice creamy donut. I'm like, you must be joking.
Yeah. No.
I'm not going to feed into that system that's just going to, like, and it's destroying our country. It's destroying every country in the world, like financially.
Hmm.
Right now we're up to $4.3 trillion, more than anything else that we're spending on healthcare. Why? Because 80% of the cost of healthcare is from metabolic health disease. Again, something that was not an issue 50 or 100 years ago.
Hmm.
So you're not going to solve that problem until you solve the problem of us being healthier. And you're not going to solve that until and again, it's not rocket science. We have to go back in time just to eating real food.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
our grandparents or great grandparents ate. You don't have to go crazy, and you don't have to go on this diet, that diet. You just got to eat real food.
And it tastes great. It's not
Yeah.
like when you do it right, it's, you don't feel deprived or unsatiated. You feel more satiated and more, full from the meals when you get the meal right versus eating the wrong thing. You don't feel satiated, just full and bloated, I feel.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Because, yeah, I always just feel like shaking people and go, wake up! Like,
Hmm.
what are you doing? And
And then they try get it right, have a salad or something, and they pour like syrup on top, or
mm,
everything has these big like sauce all over it, and it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, the environment I think around us is not weighing up the best odds for our favor, really.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how. I mean, you grew up. Like I remember growing up, obviously in Ireland. We both from Ireland, in case
Mhm.
people don't recognize the accents.
Mhm.
But, um, I mean, and this was just normal. Like it was a very just, we had a vegetable garden at the back, and we used to get our carrots and potatoes. Of course, we're Irish. You got to have potatoes
Mhm.
in there, but fruits and vegetables. Like I remember strawberries and berries. You go on a walk and you just
Yeah, they'd
take
be
the
growing on the
blackberries
side
off
of the
the
road.
thing and you just eat the stuff as you're walking down. And it doesn't have to be labeled as organic and pasture raised and this
Mhm.
and that. It's just real food. I always think the labeling should be the other way around. You should have to say what it isn't. In other words, that's the
Mhm.
real food. Oh, this is like whatever. We're artificially feeding them. It's we put all these chemicals in there. You should have to say it that way. Can I
Mhm.
have please a chemically induced blah 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 blah?
Right, instead of
That should be on the
organic,
label.
pasture raised, blah
Yeah,
blah 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 blah,
because
should be
people
the other
think you're
way.
what are you on about organic
Yeah,
pasture raised grass fed
yeah.
whatever like you shouldn't have to say that. You should have to say the opposite. But of course, who's holding the purse strings and getting
Mhm.
all the subsidies from the industry that's creating the rules on these things, which is unfortunate. But yeah, again, I could go off on a tangent of this. We better
Mhm.
get back to
Yeah, going back to
motivators for people
motivators.
because, but that is, I mean, some people that will resonate and they like to feel
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm not putting up with that anymore. I don't want to be part of that system that's ruining the world, that's
Yeah,
ruining the future generations, that's literally ruining our
making
kids'
people
lives.
sick. Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously, I've got a kid and she's 4, and I'm just so passionate about making sure she's healthy. But it's when I see what is normal, even in schools now,
Right, for
it's
kids,
just
just
ultra
junk all
processed
day.
crap. Like it
Mhm.
really is, and they're just poisoning our kids' minds
Mhm.
with all these chemicals and stuff. Okay, I'm going to do one more little
Yeah.
tangent because I just got to get this one out there, and then you got to reel me back in. But like, even with the chemicals in food and ultra
Mhm.
processed food, um, interesting. I saw this kind of documentary on it, but they have this thing called generally regarded as safe. So the FDA say, okay, well, you're allowed to put these chemicals in your food
Mhm.
as long as they're generally regarded as safe, GRAS. So they call it GRAS. But in 1997, because the FDA didn't have the resources or whatever, and then they said, okay, we're not going to check that anymore. So the companies can just tell us that it's generally regarded as safe. And now there's 10,000 of these chemicals
Yeah.
in everything. Nothing is tested. And a lot of these are banned in other countries, by the way. So we're just this huge experiment with all these weird chemicals
Mhm.
and toxins going into our systems. And this is going
And
into our
people
kids' food and
wondering why we're sick.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this should be number one topic everywhere. It should be on the news. It
mhm.
should be, everyone should be, like, even when it comes to politics, when it comes to everything, that should be number one. And I just lose interest if people aren't talking about this. I'm like, well, because a lot of these, quite frankly, wars that are going on, it's generally over money in some shape or form. It's always about countries that have a lot of resources, and again, the biggest cost in the world, every economy
Mhm.
is heading for
Healthcare.
bankruptcy because of healthcare. So, we got to solve this. And if we
Mhm.
don't, the future is not going to be bright. So that's my motivator right
Mhm.
there. It is a huge motivator. So it doesn't take a lot for me to avoid eating some ultra processed crap because I just
Yeah.
see that and I go, no, I'm not buying into that. No, I'm just
Mhm.
going to eat real food. And you can call me strange or weird or whatever
Mhm.
because I eat real food, and because I'm going to avoid that. But
Mhm.
that's to me the only way forward.
Yeah.
So
Um, that's making me think of sometimes I don't eat gluten at all since I read Dr. David Perlmutter's book on gluten, and I think it was Grain Brain back maybe 13 years ago I read it. And after that I just couldn't eat gluten again. I was just, why would I want to eat it? But people are often like, oh, what about the ancient grains with the regular amount of gluten? And I just have no interest in it. I'm like, no, I'm good. I just, that it's kind of in my mind, it's like peasant food. It's not like real food. Um, I don't know if you heard that before, but like oats and like all these kind of cheap grains, they would have been very like food for the poor back in the day to kind of feed the masses. It's like we
Mm,
want to feed ourselves like we're kings and queens, not, eating
yeah,
grains and cheap filler foods.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
I don't know, maybe that doesn't sound very politically correct, peasant
well,
food,
no, no. I mean,
but in my
it's
head
for
it is
sure.
just cheap and
Yeah, but I mean, but what you're saying is true. I
unnutritious.
mean, if you look at the history of nutrition, again, the most nutrient dense food, and of course, the socioeconomic thing is huge when it comes to this. And
Hmm.
so obviously
So much
we're
money in
privileged.
them.
We're in first world country in Los Angeles. So, and we've got so many resources or whatever, because a third of the world's population live off $2 a day. So I
Yeah.
do think about those things like, wow, they're just lucky to get enough calories to survive.
Hmm.
Um, so of course that's a huge factor. But if we drive the right industries of producing real food, that then it will have a knock-on effect. And if we get the
Hmm.
education out there, because again, it's this false economy,
Hmm.
because it's like I said, every economy in the world is set for bankruptcy because of the
Hmm.
cost of healthcare. So that's not working.
I feel like even if you are in poverty, if you can get, a little farm on some level going, you could actually sustain yourself quite nutritiously,
Mm.
um, with very little.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
If
as
you,
Irish people, we
go go
we
fishing if
we
you
have a great
can, or,
history of that. I
get
mean, we
your,
just lived off the land. I mean, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if
or
you think of any
if you had a
natural,
goat or,
I mean, even remote tribe civilizations, they're the healthiest people on the planet. They just live
hmm.
off the land. So yeah, it's very easy and natural. I mean, again, can you eat bread and grains and be healthy? Of course you can. I mean, like, the Weston A. Price, and they talk about it and all this stuff.
Hmm.
But again, it is true. I think the type of grains and the
Yeah,
way that
fermenting
they're
it
done and
and,
fermentation, all this kind of stuff,
hmm.
you can take out the anti-nutrients, the phytochemicals. So you can, but
Yeah,
like you said, I mean, I'm the same. I just, look, why bother?
eat
I
the,
just avoid it myself. Because it's just very hard now to get that stuff. And it is true, I think, when people even go to Europe and people talk about, oh, I went to Italy and I ate bread and whatever, but the quality is so much better and they don't feel terrible in the same
I
way
still
here.
don't think it's good in Europe though. You hear people say that all the time that they go to Europe and eat all the pasta and bread and they feel fine, but I still think it's probably not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think eating a
The
diet of pizza and
Italians are
pasta is going
having
to be
issues
whatever.
too.
Yeah, yeah, of course, for sure, for sure. But I just think in comparison to here,
Hmm.
it is better. But yeah, I mean, they talk about the Mediterranean diet, and a lot of it is really the quality of the meats, the fish, the dairy,
Hmm. Good
um,
oils.
yeah, olive oil, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more to it. But anyway, we
Hmm.
can kind of go into the ins and outs of actual nutrition, but kind of trying to stay back on the motivators of the reasons to eat healthy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think associating the food and how you feel is for sure a big one, because um, when you start to see the effects of the food, it does rewire your brain. So
Hmm.
in other words, if I look at a donut and I know what it does,
Hmm.
and I know it's going to make me feel awful, and it's going to shoot up my blood sugar, and then I'm going to get this insulin surge, and then I'm going to feel bad, and the inflammation and everything that comes from it, then obviously it's a lot easier to go, well, why would I want to do
Hmm.
that to myself? If I eat real food like an avocado or something else, I know, okay, I'm going to feel good. It's got a lot of nutrients. It's going to keep my blood sugar steady. That, of course, makes a big difference. So the
Hmm.
education, um, and then starting to associate how you feel. Um, but I think, and it's something that I know because I hear this a lot from the clients and stuff, that you do really well, is that when you work with clients, you talk a lot about, you get them to go into a lot of their goals
Hmm.
just in their life, and then start to bring and see how health can impact that. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that or if you can think a little bit more about what you do there, because I know that you'll like their motivation could be, you know, they're getting married or
Mhm.
relationships or their career or other aspects. And then you really kind of get them to show how health can have a big impact on other goals in their lives and associate those things together. So,
Mhm. Um, yeah, well, when people have something coming up, it's a good thing that kind of motivate them like that, a wedding, or we had a good client this week retire, and that has been her motivator for, I feel like 10 years,
mhm.
her retirement. Uh,
You can maybe, because I'm sure she doesn't mind us because
yeah,
she did the testimonial video actually that I'm sure we can pop
yeah.
up the link to on here, but maybe you can talk to, because the results were phenomenal. Obviously, she did have a lot of
Yeah,
motivation.
Terry lost 75 pounds in the last 2 years. So
Wow.
yeah, transformed and feeling amazing. She just had a big party the other day that we were at a bowling event, and it was so much fun. And she said in her speech, or did she say it in her speech? Just, no, she just said it in a group of us, but she wouldn't have had the party had she not got herself into shape and felt so good about herself. None of it would have happened. And she has another big event coming up in May. She's having another big celebration in Ireland, actually. She's going over there, and again she was saying she never would have had the confidence to do these things had she not made the big changes in her health and in her shape and everything. But for Terry, I know it was a health scare, wasn't it, that really motivated her
Mm,
to really take the program very seriously. So often it's something serious like that that gets someone motivated.
mm,
Um, and then they can tag on other motivators like a big occasion. But yeah, health can be when people get a shock at the doctors or that kind of thing, that can really motivate people to change. I've seen that as a really
mm.
big motivator,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, again, of course, it's different for everybody because, again,
Hmm.
I think if you've got kids,
Hmm.
that can be huge, and
Yeah, other
obviously,
people.
now that I've got a kid, like, and I'm not, I'm a little old, for having a kid that's 4, I'm 50, so,
Hmm.
reminds me of the movie Old Dads, but anyway, it's very funny. Bill Burr, that's a hilarious movie. But anyway, but yeah, like I'm like, wow, when she's, 20, when she's 30, I've serious motivation now to be like super, super healthy
Hmm.
because I want to be fit and healthy when she's in her 30s and I'll
Hmm.
be in my 80s, so I got to be super, super healthy now if I'm going to, you know, be healthy then,
Hmm.
so that's a big thing as well for me is to, and she's got so much energy just to keep up with her now. I need to be super healthy.
Hmm.
And it's great because I can say, yeah, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life. I'm fitter, stronger, whatever. um, and it's not that hard
Hmm.
actually. And that's something I think we can really help people with because again we get results with everybody. um, and so it could be kids, it could be family,
Often
relationship.
partners and relationships is a big motivator
Yeah,
for
yeah,
people. And when
yeah,
their partner notices it in them, that's a big motivator to keep going, that kind
yeah,
of thing.
totally, because whatever you do influences so many people around you, and that's what we
Hmm.
notice, that for each person that we work with that gets healthy, they influence at least another dozen people.
Hmm.
At least, like if you think of all our clients and then when they get
That
results,
knock-on effect.
yeah, because they'll eat healthy and then they'll cause other people to eat healthy. Obviously, family is an obvious one, but friends, colleagues, etc. So the knock-on effect is huge, and it just keeps going on and on. So I think that's something to kind of bear in mind for a motivator. Do you want to have a positive influence on people around you or not?
Hmm.
So that's another big motivator. Obviously, being in shape, of course. When you're in shape and you feel fit and healthy, you're going to feel great, and you don't want to lose it then.
Hmm.
Because I think people, again, are accepting such a low level of health. And people talk about age when they're young. In other words, they
Mhm.
go, oh, well, I mean, of course, now when I'm working with people, I'm like, people in their 30s go, well, it's probably because of my age. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
I'm like,
Are you
I don't relate. No, it's not it's not a good excuse.
Because age should not come into it
Yeah.
until at least you're in your 70s. So
Mhm.
that's not an excuse. You should feel like super fit, healthy, energetic well into your 70s. No problem. Like really like, and again, the research and everything is out, to support that. So are we missing any other motivators that you can think of, Christina? Like sometimes I always think, because it's easy when I'm 50, oh, you want to be younger. But what about for young people? Should they be motivated to eat healthy?
Of course. Um, yeah, I think it's different for different age groups for sure. People start to care a little bit more about aging as we're aging. And that becomes a big motivator to stay youthful and um, yeah,
Yeah, I
I
guess when
think
you're
people are
younger,
a
it's a
little
little bit more about aesthetics
appearance.
and how
Yeah,
you look.
that's I
And
think it's
because I mean, you started, as you
primarily.
said yourself, like when you were 19, and I was about the same age when I
Mhm.
really started. I remember working in a bar. I was super unhealthy,
Mhm.
you
You
know,
were similar, weren't
yeah,
you?
bad diet. I was, worked till 3 a.m., slept until
Mhm.
during the day like a vampire, working in a
Mhm.
nightclub bar, and drank a lot. I even smoked, all that kind of stuff. And then I joined the gym, switched everything, and a total transformation.
Mhm.
One of the things I found was really like, it's funny when you say to people, okay, yeah, eat healthier, and they go, oh no, I'm going to have to give up this and give up that. And I almost see it like the opposite, like it's this incredible gift. Like,
Mhm.
wow, I can just change literally what I'm putting in my mouth, and it's going to change my physical being. It's going to change my strength, my muscle, my joints. It's going to change how I feel, my energy. Like it's like this alchemy kind of thing. You can actually transform your
Mhm.
being. Like it's a gift. Like it's not
Mhm.
just set, that's it. There's nothing you can do that's malleable, and you can change your brain, you can change all of these other factors. So it's, to me, it's like freaking, like it's a gift to be able to switch your diet and experience these different things. Like if you go on a ketogenic diet, you have this brain that just operates off a different fuel. You've got this endless focus and concentration. I find it almost like a fun thing to kind of switch up the nutrition, and it's this fascinating area where you change your microbiome, you change your immune system, your
Mhm.
gut health. I mean, all these things are like, I love it. Like I just find it like it's like a hobby. I love that you can have this incredible impact. I mean, some people are into fashion, some people are into whatever, but your food and how it affects you, to me is a gift. It's this like magic. It's like you
Mhm.
can change these things and then bump, you see the results of it. And whether you want to focus on the brain or the body or your energy or whatever, you can just alter what you eat.
Mhm.
So that's fascinating. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to add to that? Any other motivators that you think would help people that are listening? Anything else that would give them a little
Um,
a little boost?
I think we're going to cover other kind of topics on the mindset that will really help people get more motivated as well. I think
Yeah,
they
and
really
mm,
play into each other. So I'm biting my tongue a little bit and saving it for the next
I know
series.
because you've got a lot of awesome things on that. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for the next one on the mindset. That's huge.
Mhm.
I mean, to sum it up, I always see it like everyone has this incredible potential. Like
Mhm.
we are so blessed to be alive. I mean, when you look at it, oh my gosh, we are alive. We've got so much opportunity, and the vessels that we're in, our bodies, our brains, and all these things. I mean, like I see it almost like, imagine getting to the end of your life and going, yeah, you had this incredible potential, but you only reached a small portion of it because you just put toxins in your system, and you're depressed and you didn't have much energy.
And
Like,
that's what's happening,
yeah, I know, but that to
unfortunately.
me is a motivator. I'm like, I do not want to get to the end of my
Mhm.
life and go, wow, your life could have been up here, like up 9, 10 out of 10, and really you're only living at 1 or 2 out of 10. I was like, oh my God, like that would be the worst nightmare to me. So I like motivators, both positive and negative. So I think, well, what happens if you don't do anything? Okay, you're like a lemming, you're going to go off the cliff with everybody else. It's this mass kind of sludge, like mudslide, people's poor health. Everyone's getting so unhealthy. They're so unhappy. They have no energy. When you have a lot of energy, it's like a new lease of life. And instead of just feeling tired after work and that's it, you can pick up new hobbies. You do photography, art. You can spend more time with your kids. You
Yeah, it's
can
everything, isn't
do
it?
so. You have this new dimension
Energy
of
is
living.
life, really. It's like the more energy you have, the more life force you have to go and do life.
Exactly. Like you can have double your life.
hmm
And even if you increase your energy like 10%,
hmm
well, in 24 hours,
That's
that's an extra
huge.
2 hours of
Yeah.
energy a day. That's tremendous.
hmm
And everyone has that opportunity, and it's just there on a silver platter. And all you got to do is literally a silver platter. You eat the
hmm
real food, and you have this tremendous life full of energy, full of motivation. Your outlook improves. And obviously, it's going to add years on as well. But
hmm
more importantly, your quality of life. Because I mean, you
hmm
can struggle through your last decade, and people are barely able to move, and it's not a pleasant experience. Or you can have this absolute perfect mobility and ability to do
Right.
everything.
Take control of your own health, really.
Yeah, because it should always be a priority. People are always like, oh, well, I'll put it off, and then it's too late. And if you
hmm
actually think about it, whatever you think is important today, how important is that going to be in 10 years? I always say
hmm
that to people. In 10 years from now, how important is that? Because we all have these challenges, problems that we're dealing with, and I get
hmm
it. We all have these challenges, and then we prioritize that. But health is always pushed down to the bottom, and yet
hmm
in 10 years from now, what's the most important thing? Or 20
hmm
years from now, what's the most important thing? It's generally health.
Yeah. And
So
people often prioritize work, especially over health.
yeah,
They'll put themselves second to their job, essentially.
yeah. And again, I mean, yeah, people have challenges. You got to survive, all that kind of stuff. But then, again, first world problems and stuff like that. I'd rather be super healthy and downsize a bit
hmm
than get a more expensive car, house, whatever, and then sacrifice my health. What's the point?
And be
I mean,
stressed, or
you're
yeah.
not going to have as good a quality of life. You really
hmm
aren't. So downgrade your car, upgrade your health or your
Yeah.
house or whatever, within reason, of course. But sure, I mean,
hmm
100%, it should be number one priority. It should be number one
Yeah.
priority in politics. It should be number one priority in the media. But, they're fueled by the industry that's paying them is like I never watch ads on TV when
hmm
I was
It's
watching,
insane when you
but I
do.
just set up a new internet thing, and it came with the free TV, so I just
hmm
threw on it. And I'm not used to watching ads because I just do all the
hmm
Netflix, that type of stuff. And I'm blown away. Like literally one ad is for some ultra processed food. It could be
hmm
fast food or some, candy bar, some junk food or soda or whatever. The next ad is a pharmaceutical thing.
Always.
Like it's like, here's something that's going to make you unhealthy. Here's something that's going to, that you're going to need to take after that. And
Yeah.
it's literally one after the other. And then the problem is they fuel the media because
Yeah, and then they
they're not going
can't.
to run bad stories on
Yeah.
the people who are paying them.
Suppressing the truth then.
But I feel a switch though.
Yeah,
In
there is.
recent times,
100% there is.
that people are now discussing metabolic
Health
health.
and just health in general.
Yeah,
It's a much bigger topic, and the health of the children, and people seem to be
yeah.
all more aware and caring.
Yeah. So I really think that if people listening to this, if you see these two pathways, because you might think, well, I'll think about it, but you're making a decision one way or another anyway.
hmm
So which pathway are you on? Are you going to just go with the mass, you know, lemmings off a cliff, have poor
hmm
health, the average person in there by the time you get into your 60s, four medications, all these metabolic health problems,
hmm
destroying the world? It's a dark path. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to reach your potential. Or you make that switch. You just eat real food. You control what it is you put in your mouth.
hmm
You make that switch, and then boom, it's this incredible bright future. You're going to be so healthy, so energetic, so happy. It's
Right?
awesome.
And it's easier than ever, I think, to eat well as well, in ways. Maybe go back far in our lifetime. It's easier
Well, it is
in
and it
terms of
isn't.
there's good options for vices that people might have there's healthier versions of potato chips in avocado oil, or healthier versions of sweet treats and ways using monk fruit extract and different things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
people can still have their cake sometimes
Have their
if
cake and
it's
eat it. Yeah, and we'll go through that in the third episode of
yeah.
the practical trip. So you can have healthy substitutes for these types of foods. So you can do that.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, just fruits, vegetables, proteins, like, I mean, it really
Mhm.
is just going back to real food. And then you develop a taste for it as
Mhm.
well. And you just don't, because all those processed foods, they hijack the brain, they rewire it. Their designs very specifically, scientifically, they do a lot of work to make us, like literally in the ads say, oh, once you start, you won't be able to just put it down. You got to keep eating it. Like they
Mhm.
literally put that in their
Tell
ads. It's
you.
crazy. So, but anyway, yeah, motivation. Hopefully, you'll get some motivation from this, because it really is, your life is going to be, and your quality of life is largely
Down to this.
down
Yeah.
to what you decide to chew on and swallow. And that's going to
Mhm.
be very important. And that should be priority. And if you really think about it, take a step back, look at it, just get out of that line of the lemmings going off the cliff. And we'll help you next week with the mindset, because that's huge. And then all the practical tips and tricks of exactly what to do in all the different situations. And honestly, I think between, hopefully, you listen to all these 3 episodes and you have everything that you need to transform your life. So that's what we're hoping for here.
Mhm.
So, anything else?
Nope.
Great.
That's
So we'll see you next week. And I know you're saving up a lot for next week.
good.
So the mindset stuff, definitely come back for that. And we'll build up your confidence and navigate like everything from stress to emotional eating, really rewiring your brain so it becomes a habit as well. So then it takes the effort. It should not be full of effort either. Like, I know
No.
you don't feel like it's an effort to be healthy. I don't feel like it's an effort,
Mm-mm.
but it does take an understanding and education and a bit of a mindset switch, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So we'll see you all again soon on episode 15, coming up soon.